Hi guys. Today I'm coming from the office. Sorry for the in the office with me, I have got my two budgies. We have got Mr. Bluebelly, who is the purple one, and Spiky, who is the green one. And they are being rather noisy. I think it's their way of joining in with the reading, but you're going to probably hear them throughout the story. So we're still on the book, The Boy Who Could Do What He Liked. And we're at the limited amount of TV, and it's still 6:49. The time hasn't changed. The Simpsons was on. It was a funny episode. The one in which Grandpa Simpson turned out to have been a professional wrestler. But after all the excitement involved in having and clearing up tea, in the way Alfie just done, just sitting there and watching TV felt a little, well, for want of a better word, routine. So, said Mrs. Stokes, are you doing just what you like? Well, yes, said Alfie, but now it feels like I want more. Ah, said the old lady. That's what happens, you see, Alfie, when we get just what we like. Appetite grows, it spirals. The more you're allowed to do exactly what you want, the more you need to satisfy the need inside. Oh, I see, said Alfie, nodding. So this whole experience is like teaching me that, about always wanting more and more stuff. Will the next magic thing that happens get out of control and I'll nearly die, but at least I'll have learned an important lesson? Nah, said Mrs. Stokes. Oh, okay, said Alfie. In that case, I'd like to go into the TV. And the next thing he knew, he was. A yellow three-fingered version of himself was at the side of the wrestling ring, shouting at Grandpa Simpson. Then the channel changed, because Alfie wanted it to, and also because Mrs. Stokes had provided him with a remote control to take him to the TV. Alfie was now on Cartoon Network in an episode of his favourite show, The Amazing World of Gumball. He was kind of a half frog, half apple jumping around at Elmer Junior High School. Unlike The Simpsons, this wasn't an episode that had actually been on TV. It just followed a story that Alfie made up as he went along, where Gumball and Darwin were in competition to be his best friend. It ended up with them fighting each other with jelly and custard guns, and Alfie deciding it was a draw. Then Alfie pressed another button on his remote control. Some very dramatic music started playing, and he found himself in a dark suit and tie reading the 7 o'clock news. Oh dear, he thought, wrong button, as a man poked his head from round behind the camera, looking very confused. Still, might as well make the most of it. Good evening, said Alfie. This is the 7 o'clock news. All children between the ages of 7 and 12 are allowed not to go to school tomorrow. Broccoli Bake has been outlawed, and Freddie Barnes of 14 Brackenbury Road is from this moment on to be officially known as Freddie Bum Bum Barnes. Good night. And the dramatic theme music started again. Ba 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 bang boo boo bang bang ba ba. Bath time. It's still 6:49 p.m. Alfie came out of the TV still wearing the suit and tie. You weren't in there very long, said Mrs. Stokes. Alfie shrugged. It's a limited amount of TV always. Of course, but why have you kept the suit on? Well, I've got an idea, he said. For bath time. Ah, looking forward to it, she replied. When they reached the bathroom, which was on the second floor, and Mrs. Stokes seemed to get up there as quickly as Alfie, 2 steps at a time, he said, I'm thinking the suit and tie could change into a frogman's outfit. Fabulous. And then the bath? Just dive in, Alfie, she said. He did. The suit and tie became a scuba diving suit, and he dived down and down into the bath. Deeper and deeper he went, passing schools of fish and lobsters and whales, before meeting a dolphin, which was standing on his tail underwater like they sometimes do. Hi, Alfie, said the dolphin. I'm Dolph, as in Lundgren, said Alfie. How have you heard of him, said Dolph. My dad's a big fan of the old films. Right. Well, no Dolph as in dolphin. I see, said Alfie. How come you can hear what I'm saying underwater? Well, said Dolph, there's a number of things to consider there. Firstly, in normal scuba diving, you're not allowed to take the breathing apparatus out of your mouth, which means you can't speak at all. Secondly, I'm a talking dolphin, called Dolph. So let's not worry about it. Okay, said Alfie. Who's the old dear? Said Dolph. Alfie looked around. Mrs. Stokes was floating down towards him out of the ends of her legs of her Zimmer frame, which was still lit up. He could see bubbles rushing towards the surface of the water as if it jet-propelled. "Hello," she said. "I thought I'd join you for this one, test out the Zimmer's amphibious capacity." "Great," said Alfie, "but I'm not sure about the new trousers." "They're not trousers," she said. "They're scales and a tail. I've gone the full mermaid." "I see," said Alfie, relieved that she hadn't gone the full mermaid. Above her waist she was still wearing her green "If the Queen Had Shot to Oxfam" top and pearls, and carrying her handbag. "Are you two coming?" said Dolph. "I haven't got all day." So Alfie and Mrs. Stokes swam after Dolph along the along the bath bottom, which wasn't white and enamel and 1 metre long, but covered with coral and infinite. They swam through the schools of zigzagging clownfish and crawling lobster and floating turtles. They hovered above the bright and pink and blue coral, speckled by the reflected sunlight, out of which long and slinky moral eels appeared to look at them. They saw, far beneath them, underwater cities with curly, far-reaching spires and underwater caves where lost treasure sparkled in open, ancient, moss-covered chests. And they also, bit of a bonus, found an old rubber duck bath toy that Alfie thought he'd lost ages ago. Then suddenly they were attacked by a school of sharks approaching in a terrifying V formation. "Oh no," said Alfie. "Is this the bit where I nearly died but learned my lesson?" "Nah," said Mrs. Stokes. She brought her thumbs and forefingers up to her ears and made a couple small adjustments. The next thing Alfie knew, a huge piercing wail of feedback was powering out of her hearing aids. The sharks' V formation fell apart as they retreated as fast as possible, terrified. "Thanks, Mrs. Stokes," said Alfie. "Yeah, thanks," said Dolph. "Pardon?" said Mrs. Stokes. Cleaning his teeth in the evening. Still 6:49 p.m. "So," said Alfie, toothbrush in hand, after he and Mrs. Stokes had towelled themselves dry and let the bath water out, "I think the key thing with this one is making it different for once from the morning version." Said Mrs. Stokes. "How are we going to do that?" "Can I help?" They turned around. Standing there in front of the bath was Dolph. "Are you okay to be out of the water?" said Alfie. "Yes, I'm a mammal, not a fish. I don't have gills. I breathe air just like you, only out of my blowhole." Dolph bent his head and puffed towards Alfie, who felt the slightly fishy breath on his face. "As long as I keep my skin damp, I'm okay." "You see," said Mrs. Stokes to Alfie, "you've done your marine biology homework after all." "Yes, thanks, Dolph," said Alfie. "But meanwhile, teeth. Well, what I do is open my enormous mouth and let loads of little plankton swim inside, and they feed off my teeth, cleaning them at the same time." "Right," said Alfie. "I'm sensing you don't fancy that one much, Alfie," said Mrs. Stokes. "Really," said the dolphin. "I love it. They do a great job, and it tickles, in a nice way." "Maybe this is different enough," said Alfie, squeezing the toothbrush on his brush. "How do you mean?" said Mrs. Stokes. "Well, in the morning, I never have a talking dolphin in here when I'm cleaning my teeth." "Good point." So he started brushing his teeth. Just for good measure, Mrs. Stokes and Dolph joined hands. Well, hands and fins, and did a dance. An exact copy of the one Mrs. Stokes had just watched on Strictly. The American Smooth, to the rhythm of his brushstrokes, just to make sure these teeth clean was very different. Getting undressed and putting pyjamas on. 6:49 still. "Let's do this one quickly," Mrs. Stokes said. Alfie, as they went into his bedroom. No sooner said than done, and the next thing Alfie knew, his clothes had disappeared into his wardrobe and his pyjamas were on. There was no nakedness in between, in case you were worried. Okay, guys. So we're stopping at that point there, and welcome back into class. Bye.